So, Michael, welcome. Thank you for joining us today on the Beyond the Studio podcast.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
No, it's great. We had to have you on board. For those who do know you, one of the legends of the industry, especially in the Pilates world. But for those who don't know who you are, can you share a little bit about your story and how you got to get into teaching Pilates in the first place?
I was a dancer 1,000 years ago, and my dance school was actually the school that sent Alan Herdman over to learn Pilates to bring it back into the UK. Although saying that, Pilates was in the UK in the 60s, but mainly with Ballet Rambert bringing guest teachers in to teach at Ballet Rambert. But Alan was the first British gentleman that went over. And I always tell this story that he says that they told me they don't know what it is, but it might be quite good for dancers. So we had to do it in dance school, and we didn't really like it because it was laying down and we wanted to dance. But then, unfortunately, I got injured, then understood what Pilates was. I left and became his manager. He opened a new studio over at Paddington, and I managed that. So I was managing my first studio when I was aged 21.
Wow.
He had also set up a Pilates studio in the Backdoor Company in Israel and also with Houston Ballet. Mm-hmm. So he sent me over to Houston Ballet. The guy that had been running the studio got his green card and took off for a very glamorous job. And I went over for 3 months to substitute until they found somebody. But of course, I grew up in the cold in the north. So Houston, hot and humid, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And I loved the studio, and it was really fun. And of course, I didn't want to leave. So he said, no, you're coming back to run my studio. So I said, I want to stay. He said, no, you're coming back. So this went on until I finally, the brat that I was, said, well, if I'm coming back, I'm going to open my own studio, which I did. We opened Pineapple Dance Studios in Covent Garden. That was my first studio. Anyway, a few years later, Houston invited me back, and I went over and stayed there for 10 years. Now, during that time, aerobics was just going crazy. Mm-hmm. And so as well as teaching Pilates, I trained at the first YMCA fitness leaders course back in the 80s to teach aerobics as well. And so I had this split life where there was always the Pilates on one side and there's always the fitness. And over the years, I went to the first step workshop at the Kenneth Cooper in Dallas because when he first came out of Atlanta, we were all running up and down the step on 160 beats per minute. Yeah. And so Kenneth Cooper brought out this research. We all started doing that. And so I was teaching fitness and Pilates alongside in the 80s.
I actually didn't know you did the fitness and the Pilates as well. So it's interesting for people to kind of go, because it gives you a different lens as well, doesn't it? Seeing both sides of it.
Well, of course, then after 10 years, I fell in love and moved to LA.
Right.
To have a job at Karen Voigt's studio. And so Karen walked in and said, show me something, and walked out. I was like, oh, well, that was it. And I thought, I've given this whole life in Houston to come move out there. And luckily, that was the day that Martin Henry left Voight. And so when I got home after a lot of margaritas, there was a message on saying, oh, as of tomorrow, you have 10 classes.
Wow.
So I started teaching at Voight in Los Angeles, but I always had the Pilates because there was also teaching at the Pilates studios. Maury Windsor, Ron Fletcher had his studio just down from where Voight was. And I used to go there and work with his teachers. And then they moved that studio, and a woman called Maury Windsor from Windsor Pilates took over. And she knew that I'd been running a studio, so I helped her open that studio. Ah. So I had mornings at Pilates and afternoons at the aerobics. And it was one of the classes that these two strange Australians came up to me and said, we want you to come to our convention. Okay. So that was Jane Waller and Brent Halo. And so Fit Pro.
Yep.
So I came over and did the first Fit Pro convention in Coventry. And that's really when I came back into the UK. So I really came back, not with Pilates. I came back originally with the fitness side. Yeah. And I remember those early conventions because I said to Jane Waller, I'm going to do a Pilates exercise. And I showed her the roll-up. She went, you can't do that. It's straight legs. You can't do that. This is a fitness convention. We have to be safe. Which is kind of funny as when we get into things now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was coming back. I did IFS. I did Fit Pro with Lydia Campbell. I did Fit Camps. But I was known really as the fitness teacher.
Okay.
It was only really when suddenly Pilates went crazy in late 90s that I said, does anyone want to learn Pilates? I actually also have been teaching that all my life. And that's when I became more known for teaching the Pilates rather than fitness. But spinning, circuit, you name it, I taught it.
Yeah,
you know?
and it's interesting. So it's interesting how you've led all down that Pilates route, because anyone who's in Pilates does know Michael King.
Well, we were one of the first. I mean, back when it started, there was Body Control, there was Plus Foundation, there was very few companies. And we were the first company to do modular training. Because if you wanted to be a Pilates teacher back then, you had to sign up for the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that's why when OCR came to us in 2002, they took our mat work stage 1 as the level 2 Pilates. And so we just gave them that because I worked for AFA as well. When I lived in LA, I was an AFA specialist, certification specialist. So I was teaching people to teach aerobics. I've always had the educational side in my path. And so when we started running courses, all that training with AFA really led me into running very structured modular courses. Of course, it wasn't very popular to have modular courses.
Back then.
Well, even now. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
Well, no, now it's all very different now. I mean, back it was early days. I mean, there was very little, as I say, going on, but it all exploded with mat work.
Yeah, and I was going to say, bringing in that is you seem to have always stayed curious within it, and for the instructors who are listening to this, is that really part of how you get to evolve and become?
Yeah, because I think we have a responsibility. I mean, my journey, you don't suddenly wake up one day knowing everything. You know, my journey's brought me to meet some amazing teachers as well that I've learned from, especially on the Pilates level. I mean, back in the 80s, they sent me off with Houston Ballet. When I went back, they sent me to work with Romana, with Carola. I'd already been working with Ron Fletcher and his teachers. So I got to see some of what we now refer to as elders. Back then, they were just teachers.
Yeah.
You know, when you train with somebody, you think you know everything. And then suddenly, and so I thought Alan had trained me to teach everything I knew. But then when I suddenly went into these studios where things were different, names were different, springs were different, I suddenly realized that the tapestry of Pilates is as varied as the tapestry of yoga.
Yeah.
Because that's just as varied as what Pilates is.
And I think we'll get into that breakdown of Pilates and all the different genres we've got nowadays. But do you think in teaching internationally has also added to your lens and experience? And what have you learned from teaching internationally?
Sometimes I feel like a missionary because one time early days when I was working for Nike, they sent me on a tour, very glamorous tour of Asia, to empower women. And I wanted to see what fitness was like. So I was in Korea and this very nice gentleman was showing around the club and there was a class with 2 sticks and the teacher was beating 2 sticks together and everyone's kind of laying on the floor pulsating. And I said, oh, that's interesting. What is that? And he said, that's Pilates.
Oh, wow.
And I said, really? I mean, out there, it's difficult to find countries now where there isn't Pilates. In fact, I don't think there is any countries. But obviously the style of Pilates usually is established in different countries by whoever took it in. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously some of the big brands like Stott or Polestar or Bassi, you know, sometimes they're very strong in countries. So people see that as Pilates.
Yeah.
But I think as we go on, I'm less of a missionary, more saying, well, listen, ultimately teachers have to find their own style.
Yeah, absolutely.
I found my style.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it only came from doing different things and teaching and training with different people.
Yeah.
I always say when somebody says to me, I'm a Stott teacher or a body control teacher, I say, fantastic, but you're a Pilates teacher. That's who you train with.
Yes.
You know, you might like that style, but you ultimately have to find your own style. That's what's happened in history. If you look at all the elders, they all had their own styles.
Yeah. Pilates is grown massively, really, in the last 6 to 12 months with the rise of the Reformer. What's behind it? Do you know what's behind it?
I have no idea. I mean, the Reformers. It's interesting because of the pieces of Pilates studio, we've got the Reformer, we've got the Cadillac.
Yeah.
And the Cadillac was originally named the trapeze table. But the clients in the studio called it the Cadillac because at the time the Cadillac car was the most popular car.
Yeah.
And so the Cadillac was always seen as the best piece. Mm-hmm. I don't know whether it's led by the manufacturers, whether it's led by trends. I mean, of physios, or I don't think physios. I don't know why it's happened, but without a doubt, it's happened.
Oh, you can't help but turn on a social media platform and you're seeing Reformer on it. When we go to a local town or a little even village, there's a Pilates Reformer studio popping up left, right and centre. And there's an evolution which there is pros to that and there is cons to that, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people argue. I mean, there's a guy called Sean Gallagher who took over when the studio kept getting into financial troubles. He put some money into the studio. And from that point, he claimed he owned Pilates.
Right.
And there was a big court case. So even back in the days, late 90s, people were very nervous because we were suing everybody for using the word Pilates. Pilates was called stock conditioning originally. So when that court case got thrown out, that it was a public domain name, and any method as such that anyone could teach, we saw suddenly Pilates, the word Pilates, become a lot more popular. But I think media, not just social media, because really we're going back before social media. I remember Made in Manhattan, there was a Pilates scene in there.
Yeah.
And now it's difficult to find movies without a Pilates scene in there. So it's hard to avoid it.
Yes.
But I do not know what's created this boom.
Yeah.
We've had trends in the past, but this is an expensive one because that cost of those reformers is not cheap. Mat work was easier. I mean, mat was a big revolution back in the late 90s, early 2000s, but all you needed was a mat. Now, suddenly we've
Open
got
a studio with
10 reformers
in it, or more in some cases.
25, 30 in some of the
Yes.
clubs. So, it's interesting. There's a lot of money being spent.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of competition out there. A couple of weeks ago, we always do it once a year. We take a group of teachers around studios in London to be clients. Because I think it's really important for teachers to see different styles.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way they understand they're not the only style.
Yeah.
And it was really great. I mean, 10 Pilates we went to. They were in 2007, they opened their first group reformer studio in London. And now they have 10 studios and 10 reformers, but they've also got a full circuit studio in the one we were in King's Cross. So it's been around for a while, but it's suddenly gone crazy.
How do you think Pilates is evolving now? How, as an instructor, because we know with the camps, we hear it when I have webinars and stuff like that, is people are going, I'm a purist Pilates, they shouldn't be doing that because that's not Pilates. How should instructors now be looking at this? Where's the opportunity and where's that protection element?
Well, the word classical Pilates gets bandied a lot. For me, it's not the exercises. If you go back to how Pilates was originally taught, you had to do 25 one-to-ones first.
Wow.
And then you were allowed to go to the group class. Or open studio, not group class, open studio. So that's the first thing.
Yeah.
There's not many of these studios insisting that you do 25 one-to-ones first before you go into an open studio. There was also a fact that you were given some exercises and you had to just keep practicing those exercises. And only when you were good at those exercises were you given different exercises. So, of course, Mr. Pilates himself smoked cigars whilst teaching all day, drank beer whilst teaching, not a bad idea, and threw you out of the studio if you couldn't remember those exercises you've been given, which is why I think the studio kept getting into financial problems. So I think to me, it's not the exercises that make it classical. It's the system of teaching.
If someone's from outside the Pilates world, evolve on that for us.
So for example, Mr. Pilates never did anything in rotation.
Yep.
So he only worked in parallel. Now, when he died and Romana took over the studio, she added rotation and a lot of other exercises. What Mr. Pilates did was referred to as archival.
Okay.
And Romana called her method authentic Pilates. And a lot of people have been influenced by her. Maurice Stott from Stott Pilates, Rael from Bassi Pilates. I mean, a lot of people trained with Romana, so that's a very big influence. So it's interesting because I have two good friends that worked with her for 20 years.
Yeah.
And they said that if she changed things all the time. And another little tip is that she'd always have a bottle of champagne every Friday afternoon. I love that bit. But she was very creative. And so as she got older and she started traveling, as Pilates got more popular, she was teaching a lot more of just the advanced movements. So a lot of people think of almost the end of what Romana's teaching as classical. But she would have clients coming in with conditions. There was one client that was in her 80s that would come in. She'd pay for an hour. And after about 20 minutes, Romana would say, that's sufficient. Because there was always modification in the exercises. It wasn't just doing the same set of exercises.
Right.
And funny enough, the other week I taught at fit camps up in Blackpool, I taught a classical reformer class. And no one could do it. No one could do it.
And why is that?
Well, because they don't have they don't have the flexibility.
Yeah.
Often they've got strength, but it's often superficial strength. But they don't have the movement. And so I think I'm a little bit nervous when people say reinvented or redesigned or evolved, because it's like it worked well for 100 years. But it wasn't just one set of exercises. The system of Pilates was adapting always to the client in front of you.
Yes.
Ron Fletcher told the story when he was alive. He went to Pilates with a knee problem. And so Pilates would say, forget about the knee. Let's look at the rest of the body. So there's always been that adaptation. And it's all about adapting. I spend my life adapting the exercises for the different clients.
So you're talking about adapting for the people in front of you. So
yes.
This also brings in the numbers of people in Pilates. Because I know this is a key thing we see on social media at the moment is how many people should be in classes? Should we, to keep it safe? Is this all going back to because you're teaching the person in front of you?
It was never done as a group exercise class. The first group exercise class, Pilates taught at Jacob's Pillow, which was a dance camp. There was also a small group of businessmen he would teach on a Tuesday in New York. That was the first record of group. But they were dancers at the camp. It was always, even though there were other people in the studio, you were always doing your own program. Now, here in London, Alan's studio, he's got 2 studios now. The one at Edgware Road, if anyone's listening and has never been to that studio, you must go take class. Because then you'll see how the system uses more than just a reformer.
Right.
The reformer's great, but it's not the only thing. It's one set of exercises. When you've got the other pieces of apparatus, you've got so many choices. I was asked to I have a studio here in London in South Kensington. And then when they asked me to open that studio, I said, well, I'm having towers, not just the reformer.
Yep.
And so we do tower mat, we do tower reformer, we do different programming because it's all about programming.
Yeah.
You've got to maintain the client's interest. Retention is everything. Once the clients get it, they'll be your clients forever. But there's a whole grey period when they don't get it. And I spend my life in that grey period trying to get clients to get it. And I think, it's not just about breath or just about your cueing or imprint or neutral. There's so many levels of what the clients need that I think a good teacher needs to be well versed on different areas of what the body needs.
Yeah. So we're talking really about quality against integrity, really.
You need to learn something to start teaching.
Absolutely.
But your journey is ongoing. It's what do you need? And I think some of the conversations we have is people want a fully trained teacher, but you're never fully trained. You can spend more time learning, but there's at some point you need to start teaching because the client's going to teach you more than any course.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you need to have enough knowledge. And I think the problem, because of what's happened with this popularity, there are studios around the country that maybe the teachers don't know what they should know to start teaching.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing about the quality, right? I'm going to say I see on social media, because we have our own platforms, of people going, there's a constant every 4 or 5 times a day at a studio going, I need some fully trained instructors. I need some fully trained, so because they can't get enough instructors to supply these pop-ups that are going up left, right and centre, the studios. Hey, thanks for listening. Did you know that EMD UK provides group exercise instructors with professional support and training for less than the cost of hiring a hall for a day? Keep up with the sector, stay on top of training and receive exclusive content at emduk.org. Now, back to the discussion. So, talking about qualifications, this is one thing that will always be a question. And just for the listeners who are on our podcast today, is as EMD UK, we have launched a Pilates advisory group to help control the growth of Pilates, because it is one of these things at the moment that has gone so large. And we've got people like Michael on our advisory panel to help support this. But we're seeing it as a CPD accreditor, is that so many people are trying to pop through Pilates qualifications and getting CPD and additionals. If someone is a studio owner out there, what should they be looking for in their qualifications? And we know it's a lifelong journey, but to make sure that who they're recruiting is safe.
Well, I think if you're a studio owner, you've got the perfect opportunity to do like a mentorship in-house training, but you have to do it. And that's a hard thing. Because if you're seeing your teachers week in, week out, you've got a responsibility to help that development. I think if you're a teacher looking to start, you've got to do a qualification. Now, there's challenges with that.
Yes, absolutely.
Because the qualifications out there, we wrote the original level 3 with body control. We gave level 2 in 2002. Then body control, Alan Herman, ourselves, Pilates Foundation, created level 3 in 2005. And it took a lot of biscuits and a lot of teas and coffees to get to where we all agreed what a teacher needed to start. But it's kind of changed since we created it. I mean, we wanted the teacher to be able to do personal training, to teach group class, to teach beginners. And so it's kind of changed. What we created is not really being delivered anymore. And so I'm all for qualifications. I think the management of qualifications is equally as important because a qualification to me is that the teacher's been assessed and they've been assessed against a criteria.
Yeah.
I think all training providers should be accountable.
Yeah.
I think we all have to answer to somebody how we're doing things. That's just a responsibility. So I've always been behind that. And I will keep being behind it. I keep getting Lifetime Achievement Awards, which basically in English means stop. Stop, you've done enough.
No, never.
And every time I take that award, I say, well, there's another one for the shelf, but I'm not stopping yet. You might want me to stop, but I'm not stopping. Because I think everything I've learned, I want to share. I've made mistakes. We all have, but I don't want new teachers to hopefully not make the same mistakes. But I think you need to be assessed. There needs to be something. You can do CPD. We all need, and CPD is not a bad word. It's upskilling.
It's continuing professional development, but there has to be a base, right?
There has to be a base, and it has to be things that you need.
Yes,
not
it's
just
relevant to the job skill, right? So
and I think that we're a lot better than what we used to be because basically you could do knitting or needlepoint as CPD for Pilates in the past.
Yeah.
Now it has to be relevant.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important. So people think, I have to do CPD. Don't see it as that. See it as this is an opportunity to learn more.
To grow.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
It's a growth mindset.
as you know, I love learning.
Yes.
When I do my walking in the morning, I had different podcasts on. And I love the science ones when I'm learning about fascia and learning about what they're finding out, because that's all going on. That's not finished. And so I think we have to be open to learning.
Yeah.
I am. I mean, after 47 years of teaching, which I know you find incredibly impossible.
Never.
I started at 1 year old. I'm learning because it keeps changing.
Yeah, and I think that's something that maybe has been lost in the last decade probably, is people not learning as much. And I think those people who we've had on the podcast are everyone's saying it's around continuing your development in any shape or form, because you don't have to be the same as everybody else. It's finding your path, finding your way of developing.
No.
But actually, if you don't continue learning and doing CPD, you're not moving with where the industry is moving as well, because the way that Group X was 20 years ago is different now.
Oh, totally. Totally. And I think there's pressure coming from all sides. I mean, I think with the large gyms, there's a lot of pressure, getting teachers to fill classes. I think that's a big influence. And I think sometimes it's like when you desperately need a plumber, you'll take anybody that says they're a plumber.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of pressure from all the sides. But I think if you're a comprehensively trained Pilates teacher, it doesn't mean you don't need CPD.
Yeah.
If you've done mat work and you're fully trained in mat work, it doesn't mean you don't need CPD. No. That's your starting point. So people's starting points are going to be very different. Now, I come across people, I call them butterflies. They do a little course with this company, they do a little course with that company, and they add to it. And, because they don't belong to one training provider with a brand name, they're not seen as human beings as such. I'm like, no, these people have done more training.
They've evolved more because they've gone out and seen different lenses, right?
I love the butterflies.
Yes, yeah,
because they've gone out themselves. They're not pressured because of their training provider to have to do CPDs. They've done it themselves.
Yeah.
And so when people send me their certificates and their list of what they've done, I'm amazed, because there's a huge industry in this country of really good teachers.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, there's some not so good teachers.
Yeah.
But we mustn't forget, traveling internationally, let me see. It's a bit like the NHS. We always criticize the NHS. Go to a country without it, and you'll know exactly what we've got.
Agree.
And it's the same here with qualifications. Go to some countries which have no standards. And, I go to Bulgaria a lot. And last time I was there, I was doing a Reformer course. And 10 people on that course had all open studios, had clients, had never done training.
Wow.
As I reach for my glass of vodka, I'm thinking, how am I going to handle this? I think I can either scream and shout, or they're here now.
Yeah.
And I think that's how we have to move the industry forward.
Yeah, and I think that's the bit going, the evolution of how we're going with how we're growing so quickly, right? Is how do we regulate that quality integrity, but also remain safe? Because there is, from our point of view at EMD UK, we are here to represent and advocate for instructors and help support them grow and learn, but also the byproduct of it is to engage more people in physical activity. Now, we've not been shifting that physical activity dial for years, but actually the boom of the Reformer at the moment, these studios that are opening up that may not have people who are qualified at the moment or are qualified at the moment, is being that we are engaging more people who weren't involved in physical activity before.
Group Reformer is one of the most dangerous classes because it's movable surfaces. And so when I see people standing on with kettlebells or with other things, I'm thinking, oh my God, this is really challenging the human body. Absolutely. And on paper, it works. If you've got great posture, you've got strength and breath and everything, all of that makes sense. But people don't. And so, again, we have to be realistic about it. Again, with the qualifications, mat work, we had 34 movements. So all training providers I know will teach those 34 movements as part of their mat training.
Yeah.
Reformer, there's no repertoire. So I think that's the big mistake. We've got the qualification, but we need the repertoire. Now, when SIMSPA were updating the mat, it was one of the biggest gatherings of the Pilates industry up in Leicester, or Loughborough rather. And we went to so many meetings up there. One of the meetings, they said, if you guys got your act together, we'd have to come to you for advice. So on the train back down, I was with a couple of other people. I said, listen, why don't we do that? So and then, of course, we had the wonderful pandemic. Yeah. So during the pandemic, we created an organization called the Society for the Pilates Method, the SPM.
Yeah.
And it's not controlled Pilates. We're passionate about is pressing the training providers to provide better training.
Yeah.
That's what we're really about. It's not that we're better than anyone else. We're not. But we are passionate about, all of us are passionate about the method, and we meet every Tuesday and we talk about what we can do and how we can promote. We're not related to any government body, so we're all independent.
Yeah.
I think those kind of things can help the Pilates industry move forward. But of course, there's a lot of people that don't agree with that because their style of Pilates, their classical Pilates is very different to what we do. With the amount of time I've been teaching, I think I see myself as classical, but I would say with a contemporary twist because, and I got into a lot of trouble one time at one interview when I said, I respect the classical world, I just don't have classical clients. And the classical world exploded saying, oh, and I said, I was being serious. Well, since we moved to Scotland, and I never thought I would say this in my life, I'm teaching in village halls and community centres.
Yeah, going back to the
roots. And people came in, first mat class, no one could get down to the mat.
Right.
So we had to bring chairs out and we did some chair exercises, Pilates based. And now a year later, they're getting down to the mat. Now, these are all older.
Yes.
These are not younger. And I think that's the other thing, going back to the Group Reformer, it's brought, and I can see this in our studio in Kensington, it's brought a whole new community or demographic or youth to Pilates. Because at our studio, it's all 25, 30-year-olds.
Yes.
That's not the typical Pilates client.
No.
So when people start arguing about the Group Reformer, I'm like, yes, of course, physios often will refer the word Pilates to their patients. And so unless the client does research, they'll finish up in the wrong class.
Absolutely. So in case we have got participants out there listening to the podcast, because I'm sure with the word Pilates on this one today, people will be interested. What should they be looking for in the instructor? What's the questions they should be asking for Pilates?
The common sense things is it the right Pilates for you? I mean, if you've got some back problem, knee problem, neck problem, going to a large group class or group reformer class is not going to be the right place for you. No. You need to find the right Pilates for what you need.
Yeah.
Now, if you're an athlete or you're amateur and you're exercising a lot and you want to go, first you have to understand it's not the same workout you've been doing, because I always say to my clients, as a Pilates teacher, my job is to find the muscles you're not using. And then we train those muscles. So I can have a professional basketball player next to a grandmother and they're both feeling difficulty for different reasons. Of course, I'm giving them different exercises.
But that's where a small group would help.
Yes, anything small is great.
Yes.
You know, I think 4 people with back problems is too many.
Yeah.
I fight about numbers. I'm like, one of the training providers say 10. I'm like, but why 10? Why not 9? Why not 11? Who came up with this 10? Pilates didn't say 10. I said, I think it's down to the skill of the teacher.
Yeah.
I've seen some really good teachers. One of them I know working for one of the chain groups, and she's got 25 reformers in there, and she does a great job. I've seen her teach. She's great. She's very clear. It's a skill.
Yeah.
For me, well, going back to group reformers, I see as an add-on to knowing how to teach regular Pilates. It's a skill. When you've got a group of people in anything, mat work or anything, you need to know what you're teaching. And I think often when exercises are invented, and I see them every day on Instagram, I'm like, I look at this exercise thinking, is there a reason to do that exercise?
Yeah, there's an element, I know a lot of people out there will be sitting there going, we want to protect the Pilates word, but there is, when you're seeing some of the things doing kettlebells on a reformer, it's what's being lost from the Pilates.
Yeah, and also are you risking?
Yeah, absolutely. And this goes into the big question, right? Risk and legislation around how we can make sure it's safe.
It's a big challenge because in every part of the sector, there are challenges from the qualifications, how they're managed. I think qualifications are vital, but I think they've been managed well from the external verifiers going out who actually know what Pilates is. Yeah. I mean, that's a big challenge. The actual qualification needs to be looked at. I think you need repertoire because it's like mat work. If you don't have the exercises, how can you start? And there is... we looked at all the training providers. We looked at Romana's original manual. We looked at everything. And with the SPM, we came up with a criteria that everyone teaches. There's always differences of exercises, but there is a repertoire that we all teach. And I think that should be part of a qualification, that the teachers learn the original repertoire. Because what people don't get, and teachers fall into this trap where they think the clients need more. I need to entertain the clients.
Yes. Switch it up all the time. Yeah. What's the next exercise we can add in? How can we make it look different?
What's new today?
Yeah.
Pilates would have thrown you out in a second. Bodies only change by doing simple things every day. It's our job to make those simple things interesting.
Yeah.
So it's not about inventing new movements. It's about taking the simple things. And I wish on social media, and there's some people in there I really respect, but sometimes I'm thinking, why are you showing that? Why don't you show good technique? Why don't you show what Pilates really is?
Rather than the bad things.
Rather than split standing on your head, with a stability ball on the reformer, why don't you just show good method?
Yeah.
Because then public...
If we could flood the social media with good technique.
With good technique rather than inventive.
Yes, yeah.
Then I think that would help the industry a lot.
Yeah.
But I think if you're a participant looking to go to a Pilates class, you've got to ask the question, who is the teacher? And it's not impolite. I mean, as I told you, I was asked, are you qualified? When I started teaching in church halls, a lady called me and said, are you qualified? And I was so shocked. Nobody's ever asked me. Yeah. I was like, yes, I have my level 3. Here's my certificate. Don't be afraid to ask the background of the teacher. Is it really a good plumber you've got?
Yes.
Or is it somebody? Word of mouth is often passed on from being a good teacher, but clients today, they know first of all. Well, I had one client who came to Kensington and she said, my physio sent me to Pilates, she should be going to one of the studios. And she says, my back was getting worse. She said, I knew that wasn't right. Why would he send me to get my back worse? So, unfortunately, she had been doing dynamic exercise.
Right.
And it wasn't what her body needed. So going back to a participant, what do you need?
Yeah.
Is it postural work? Is it lengthening? And really try different classes and see who you connect with.
Which same with any group exercise class,
Totally.
Realistically, right? Is you go and it's like trying it on. You try it and see if you connect with the person. But actually, with this one, Pilates, people tend to go to it. Like I have just done. I've invested in an 8-week course myself to kind of understand where my body is broken and needs to be fixed with Pilates, and it was an eye-opener to me. But it was, again, the connection of I had to do a bit of work to find who I wanted to work with, who was in my area and who could help support me with that.
Yeah, if you go to a dance class, if you go to anything, you go try the class, see if you like it, see if you connect. And I think it's the same with Pilates. Go to, if somebody has recommended, it doesn't mean that you might like that teacher. I mean, we all connect with clients for different reasons. But what you have to ask yourself is, how does your body feel afterwards? I mean, another client came to my studio, she says, I love it here. I said, oh, great, thank you. Why? And she said, well, I always feel so good afterwards. And she said, at the other studios, I just felt like I'd been beaten up.
Yeah.
And I said, well, that's because your body needs good, nutritious movement. And, it doesn't come from beating the body up. No. I mean, even going back to those Jane Fonda days, and the Nike Just Do It and the Burn and all that, we have really, unfortunately, taught people that they must torture their body to get a good body.
Before any results. Yeah. And it's not about the aesthetic. It's about actually what your body needs. And
Totally,
moving in the right way. And I think the Pilates bit also teaches that core element of it, of going back to basics rather than the global muscles always working. It's about going, how do we connect with the inner part, which relates to so much more than just movement.
Yeah, I mean, the neural pathways, all the layers of movement. I mean, how it affects your mind and your body and how you feel. I mean, it's not just working out. I mean, people might think it's just getting some muscles going, but there is so many different layers of when you're doing movement. And I tell my clients, it's also not what you do when you go to the class, it's what you do between the classes, because that's equally as important. If you go to a class 3 times a week, if you're lucky, that's still a lot of days you're not going to class. You know, the only way the body will change is to apply what you're learning or do something else.
Yeah.
I just say, you know, my days of clubbing have well gone. Although in my head, I think I still do it. But of course, in reality, I can't. I say to clients, listen, go home, put a good playlist on, some music that moves you, and dance at home. Don't go out. Just dance at home. Move the body.
Yeah.
Movement is the
Medicine.
most important we've got. When we lose movement, we lose everything. We lose independence and everything. So we've got to keep moving.
Mm-hmm.
And this trend or this new, I always like to refer to as the group reform as a new relative that's come into the family of Pilates. Don't see it as evil. It's fitting the needs. You know, there's studios everywhere now, and those studios are full. I checked on this. When we did the tour of London, all the studios were busy, you know, and people are going, so they're moving.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the most important thing, right? We need to get the nation moving.
Totally. And we've not. Mm-hmm. So if they go because they want to do group reformer, great.
And it might be their first experience, but that might also lead them coming down and moving. They're going to move and trial. We know what people are like with trends, right? They don't stick in one place. You see it in operators. They move quite regularly between operators. It's going to happen in Pilates Reformer and Reformer studios as well.
There's a lot of money being spent on these reformers, which is great. But I hope that there's going to be, as they would back in the days, remember slide.
Yes.
We had the slide. We had step and slide, funk and slide, all that. And then, unfortunately, they got rolled up and left in the corner gathering dust. I hope that doesn't happen with reformer, because and also reformer's just part of the system.
Yeah.
It's not the full system, but it doesn't mean you need to know the full system. I mean, the other day I was watching somebody who was trying to justify that he's a reformer teacher on social media, and so he doesn't need to know the chair and the ladder bar. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But you might in the future. You don't know what you're going to do in the future.
Absolutely.
But at this moment, he's focusing on just learning the reformer. Mm-hmm. And you think I think, great. But don't say no. Never say no.
Never say no, because you'll find yourself doing it 5 years down the line.
Exactly. You know, it was like math teachers. Math teachers would say to me, "I'm never going to do reformer." You know, well,
how many of them now teaching reformer because it's actually taken off?
Yes, and unfortunately, practically, they get more money for it.
Yeah.
Unless you rent church halls, but that's a whole other thing.
Listen, one thing we've been very grateful for your time with at EMD UK is you've helped us with the scopes of practice with a new piece of work. How do you think that's helped the sector with the
I think once we get everything up and running and kicked, I think it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Because holding a certificate up saying, I've done this with this company, doesn't tell me what you're qualified to do.
No.
I think it clearly writes, makes it very clear what a teacher's qualified to do. Mm-hmm. And if it's out of scope, I mean, the other day somebody was leaving a message, I've got a pregnant lady coming to my class. What exercise shall I not give her? I've read this and this. And somebody actually said, you go get qualified first.
Yes.
I mean, that's out of scope.
Yeah.
If you're taking things in you don't know how to adapt, that's 100% out of scope.
I think if you start to ask that question immediately, what do I need to do? Then you don't have the tools or
you're out of
skills to be able to deliver it. So you're out of scope. So that I think, but what's been interesting with the Pilates ones is I think it has also helped us from our perspective of being able to help operators and instructors clearly define where they sit. Because we have the Pilates, we have the studio Pilates, and we have the fitness Pilates.
Yeah. There's the other thing is, the endorsement of CPD courses is confusing for teachers.
Yeah.
Because they don't know, am I qualified? They paid to do the CPD course. They've learned something. But, I always look and see, have they been assessed? And how have they been assessed? If there's been any assessment on. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, if you've been qualified, maybe you don't need assessing. But I think that's a big confusion going on now and I see it all over the country, is courses which are being endorsed that are really CPD. So I think we have to sort that out along with the qualifications. And so it's clear for the teacher.
Yeah, I think that's we get a lot of people coming to us and instructors sort of going, I've got this qualification. It's not a qualification, it's
No.
CPD. So I think
I think the scopes will sort that out.
We've been developing them for 2.5 years. It's a legacy with Jill having been with us at EMD UK, and are continuing to develop them with the Pilates Advisory Group and amend, because it's an evolving sector, right? We need to make sure we're working with it so we enable people to teach, but safely.
Well, I always think, Pilates is Pilates. And so when I hear that they're updating the standards, I'm like, I don't know how you can update a method. The only thing you can update is the delivery of how the qualifications. And unfortunately, the pressure is less training all the time. And training is always the first thing by the operators to be pushed aside. It's the plumber thing. Clubs I know are pushing people in to teach a group reformer class that have never been trained in group reformer. I hear it every day. And I think and I know why the operators are doing it. They want to keep their clients happy.
Yeah.
But if they finish up, there's a large group in Lithuania box gyms that I went. They called me and said, look, we have a problem. The clients aren't happy. And so I go over, they said, look, the clients aren't happy with the group reform. So I looked and I said, well, actually, none of your teachers are trained.
Yeah.
And they said, well, what can we do? And I said, now this chain had made 6 million profit last year, and they're opening another 10. And I said, well, train your teachers.
Yeah.
They said, no, there must be another way. We need to keep the clients happy. I said, yeah, the box gyms is push button to go in. So the only people the clients get to see are the cleaners and the teachers.
Yeah.
I said, they're your salespeople. I said, they need to be trained. But so I think that's a challenge because, again, there is no quick way. If your teacher's not trained, they're not trained. I don't know how to magically make them trained.
Yeah.
And to be trained, you have to do a certain amount of training.
Yeah.
And then you have to be assessed.
Hi, have you hit that subscribe button yet? Just a reminder to tap the button so you don't miss an episode, and help other instructors to listen by hitting share. Back to the studio. So looking at the reformer, do you think this is a trend? Do you think this will burn out, or do you think this is something here for the future?
I hope the conversation about group reformer can get reframed, because I think we've got a lot of opportunity here. And if you poo-hoo it, it doesn't matter how much you scream on social media about it, it's going to keep going at the moment.
Yeah.
So, be part of the movement and just step up. And, if you're in an area where this is going on, if you see dangerous things happening, I think it's your responsibility to call it.
Yeah.
But I think often these teachers, they're not evil people. They're not murdered anyone. They just don't know yet what they don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe that's your opportunity to go in and kind of go and taking it from a positive point of growth.
Yes.
Right? And rather than taking it as a negative and hounding people out on social media because of the techniques.
Yeah, I think that does nothing. And please, please, please stop sharing videos of people falling off the reformer, because it damages us all.
Absolutely.
When people share these horrendous videos, and I agree they're horrendous, that does not help the industry. That just
it tarnishes the name of Pilates.
It does. It makes us all look bad.
And it's such a great tool. If we could overwhelm the social media channels with positive stories of it and good practice and good techniques, that will start pushing away all the negativity ones.
And it's also helped the public, because I've had clients that have come in with walking sticks and arthritis in the knees, and they lay on a reformer and they start moving beautifully. Actually, they normally lay on a Cadillac, not the reformer, with the knees, and they're moving like it's incredible.
Yeah.
So it's a great tool when used correctly. If you have a problem, clients coming in with problems and you don't know what the problem is, then refer.
Yes.
Don't try and think you have to know everything.
Don't step out of scope.
Clients will push you to decide what's wrong with them.
Yeah.
And I say it all the time, I have no idea, but this person, I've Sarah Wall up in Glasgow. I send my clients out there. She does a great job diagnosing. She sends me the report.
Yeah.
And so I find out what the problem is. Then I can create a program for them.
Absolutely. I think we could talk about this for ages, to be honest. We need another hour and a half.
Yes, at least another month.
Yeah, exactly. But before you go, we have a question that we always ask people at the end, which is called the ripple effect. If you were to look back or be able to give somebody who's starting out their career now, what's that one tip you'd want to give them of how not to make a mistake or how they could set off on their pathway?
I think know your limits. I think, we all grow. And at the beginning, it might feel like you're not ready to start teaching, but your clients will teach you more than any course. You just have to be ready to go for that first class. So I think personality is different. I've had teachers who come to us, or new teachers who have never taught. We're what we call the generation thing, where teachers who trained with us back in the day, and now some of their clients are coming.
Yeah.
So they're maybe not used to standing up and talking in front of people as what it used to. When we all took off, it was all fitness teachers. They all were teachers. Now it's a whole different group of people coming to learn to be a teacher. I think you have to practice.
Yeah.
You have to know your own Pilates. Now, those guys have been going to Pilates for a long time. They come knowing it. For them, the challenge is learning to teach.
Yes.
But back in the days, it was a lot of times people were sent to us to learn Pilates, but they'd never been to a Pilates class. So they were learning it as they were learning to teach it. I think you will change. You can change people's lives. And if you can change one person's life, you've done your job. You can't change everyone.
Yes.
There will be people that don't like you. There will be people that love you. Not everyone, you can't please everybody. You have to have your own, control of what you're doing. Because as soon as you start teaching, you'll be very busy with hundreds and hundreds of classes a week. You can't maintain that. So for me, the perfect schedule is teaching three maybe personal trainings and then group class and maybe 3 personal trainings. That keeps for me, group exercise has always been my passion. And I think finding the right way for you to keep moving forward. There is a lot of people out there not exercising. See how you are with people just talking and just
get feedback from them as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I came across it in Ireland first. It was Every Contact Counts, which is actually also in the NHS, where the receptionists and the nurses would have conversations to the clients about things like nutrition or stuff like that, but they wouldn't diagnose, they wouldn't give programs.
Yes.
And I think in a way that's what we do as Pilates teachers. You will come across a lot of people that have got health issues and postural issues and you name it issues. You can't fix everybody.
No.
You just have to fix one person. If you can fix one person, give them the tools to fix themselves, then I think you will definitely be successful and keep growing.
Yeah.
I mean, as I say, I've said this, you don't know everything at one time.
You keep evolving.
You just keep evolving.
Yeah.
Just know that part of that evolvement is teaching.
Yeah.
Get the confidence from teaching.
Great. On that note, I think that's a great point to finish. Thank you, Michael, for joining us today.
No, thank you for inviting me and being your guest.
And to everyone who's joined us today on the Beyond the Studio podcast, thank you. If you liked it, find it on the usual platforms, subscribe to it, and we'll see you on the next episode of Beyond the Studio.